Hi, welcome to Angie B's house. I'm Angie B, and today we're going to talk about bedwetting. I've had some interest in my video on how to clean a bed if you have a child that bedwets. So I thought today I would give you my top 10 tips on dealing with bedwetting. Just to give you a little background, I have raised two children who were chronic bedwetters. And these tips are tips that I have learned with these two children, which one will be an adult at the end of the year, the other one is his mother, and she's, been an adult a long time. And yes, they have both quit. No, neither one of them wet the bed anymore. So that's a good thing. But I figured I would give you my top 10 tips. So tip number 1. Common tips that your pediatrician or other experts on bedwetting might give you are not always effective. They'll, like for instance, they'll suggest to reduce the fluid intake before bed. Yes, I agree with that. However, it doesn't quite always help, because if they get enough fluid throughout the rest of the day, their body still naturally gets rid of excess fluid while you sleep. And that's why every morning when a typical person gets up, the first thing they have to do is use the restroom. So yes, it helps. No, it doesn't really. The second tip is, along the same lines. Make sure the child goes to the bathroom before they go to bed. Well, yes, that helps. But I have found, and I'm sure that, you as adults have also found that even if you go to the bathroom before you lay down to go to bed, before you go completely asleep, 9 times out of 10, you have to get out of bed and go again, especially within the first hour. It's the same with them. I found a lot of times, typically, that when my children wet the bed, it was usually within that first hour after going to sleep. Usually. Next one is set a goal for getting up to use the bathroom. If a child is motivated to no longer wet the bed, then that might work. It might work. And that goes along the same lines as, they recommend using a reward chart. If your child is not motivated by stickers or motivated by, whatever you think of, it's not going to do any good to have a reward chart. The child has to get mature enough to want to quit. The next 2 tips, kind of along the same lines. Well, no. The next tip is, like maybe you can use an alarm, or you can set an alarm. Well, my children were such deep sleepers that, it took them several years of being an adult before they could get up to an alarm. So if an alarm's not going to wake them up, It's not going to do any good to set an alarm. I mean, yeah, sure, you could set an alarm to get up and then get the child up to make sure that they go. But what I found is that because my children were such deep sleepers, that by the time I got them up, and if the bed was wet, got the bed changed, made sure they went to the bathroom, by the time that all that happened, I was usually awake and couldn't go to sleep, so I would not get a good night's sleep. And many times my child couldn't get back to sleep either. So they would have uninterrupted sleep. They would have interrupted sleep and sometimes have difficulty going back to bed, going back to sleep. So, that didn't always work. Doesn't always work either. The next tip is monitor the bowel movements. Yes, if a child's bowels are full, they do have difficulty completely emptying their bladder. So that is a definite yes. Don't really have any tips on that other than, consult with your child's pediatrician to ask, what can you do to help the child go more regularly if they aren't. And then the last tip would be to consider using absorbent pants. Well, I don't agree with that. And I'll explain, what tips, and then, next couple tips, I'll explain what I did do instead. The reason I don't agree with absorbent pants is for the exact same reason that when they're awake and you use like the pull-ups, it takes, from my experience of raising 5 children, it takes longer to potty train a child that's in diapers or pull-ups than it does if you just let them wet themselves. I know that sounds horrible, but if a child continues to wear the extra padding on the underwear, it does not, to me, my experience is that it doesn't teach the child to use the bathroom. Instead, it teaches the child that, I don't have to worry about wetting my pants because I can just go in them anytime I want because I have this diaper or pull up to catch my pee and I'll just go change myself. No. When you're first starting out potty training, and maybe when the child is, a little younger until they get to an older age, then yes, until they start getting to the point where they know. But once they start getting to the point where they know that they should know better, and they know how to use the bathroom, cut it out. Don't use the pull-ups. Let them wet their pants. That is the fastest way that I have found to potty train a child, because a child does not like the wetness of the pants, and they don't like the embarrassment that comes with wetting your pants in public. As soon as I quit using the pull-ups on my children, except for except for my bedwetters. My bedwetters did have other medical problems that had to be solved before they quit. But my other 3 children, as soon as I quit using the pull-ups, they quit wetting themselves. And these tips, I did get these tips from WebMD. I'll put a link in the description box below. But those are the, the common ones and what I think of them. Also, as far as, the child having to change the bed, and teaching them responsibility. If they get tired of changing their own bed, they will eventually get tired of waking up and being wet every night. It's more of a motivation for them to get out of bed. I know that with my 2 children, a lot of the issue was they were deep sleepers. And if they did wake up, they just didn't feel like getting out of bed. They were tired, still tired. They just weren't motivated to get out of bed. So if they continue to have a wet bed, they'll be more motivated to wake completely up and go to the bathroom to go in the middle of the night, instead of just saying, oh, well, I got this diaper on, I could just go change my clothes, I'll just go back to sleep and just wet myself. Tip number 2, accept that bedwetting is a normal part of growing up. They will grow out of it. Some children just don't develop as quickly as other children. And usually the bedwetting is a symptom of another underlying condition. And you have to treat that underlying condition. Sometimes the child's bladder just does not, because they're deep sleepers, I should say. The child's bladder is just not big enough to hold enough urine overnight. And because they're deep sleepers, you can't get them up. So just accept that it's a normal part of growing, and some kids just take longer to do it. Number 3, even though your initial reaction is to get upset that it continues to happen, and you get frustrated, don't yell, don't punish, don't get frustrated, and don't tease. And don't let any siblings tease them. Instead, just have tools in place to deal with the wet bed, on a daily basis. And trust the process, and make it as easy as possible. Continue to talk to your child about the importance of not wetting the bed. Continue to try to encourage them not to, and encourage them to get up in the middle of the night if they do wake up, to go to bed, to go to the bathroom. But if they don't, accept it and say, it's okay. There's always tomorrow night. You'll get it. I have confidence in you that you will get this. Number 4. This is a great tip. This is the best thing. Once I finally decided to do this, it saved a lot of frustration. And that is to buy plastic sheets and plastic pillowcases. It protects the pillow. It protects the bed. So that if it does get wet, then the more difficult items to clean don't have to be cleaned as often. And always make sure that you have a spare pillowcase, a plastic pillowcase, and a plastic sheet, because you don't want to have to, find at bedtime. You don't want to have to find out that, oh, one of them sprung a leak, or sprung a leak. One of them, teared. It has a hole. Now, I mean, as a temporary fix, if it happens, you can sometimes use packing tape if you happen to have it, and tape it together till you can go to the store and get another one. But it's a big headache saver to have that spare. Because if that happens at bedtime, you don't have to worry about, oh, what store is still open? Does this store carry them? I usually was able to get them at Dollar General, Family Dollar, and Walmart. And I think Target carries them as well. Walmart was the least expensive. But having those on hand, extras on hand, has, saved me a couple of times. And I have a dog. Dogs that would get up on the bed. So, it was a little more difficult trying to keep them from ripping. So they probably didn't last as long as they might for someone else. But, I usually had to change it once a month. Sometimes 2 months. Okay. Also, another quick tip about the plastic sheets is that whenever the sheet gets wet, or whenever you're making the bed the next day, make sure that you either have, like soap and water, or maybe some disinfecting wipes, and just wipe the sheet down to disinfect it. Gets off most of the urine from the night before, helps freshen the room, and that way you don't have to replace that plastic sheet as often. Now, when you are buying your plastic sheet and pillowcases, I don't recommend the ones that have zippers, because they're too cumbersome to take off, especially the sheets. If you wrap the mattress in a sheet that zips, when the sheet changes or tear, or when you need to change the sheet, you have to completely take the mattress off the bed. It's so much easier to just get the fitted plastic sheet and take it off and throw it away. Tip number 5 is have multiple sets of sheets, multiple pillowcases, multiple pairs of underwear, multiple pairs of pajamas, and plenty of towels. The reason I say that is, of course, if the child wets in the middle of the night, the last thing you want to have to do is get out of bed and change sheets and blankets and everything in the middle of the night. Now, if it's, a major puddle, yes, you might have to. But if it's just a little bit of a wet spot, like for instance, let's say they start to go, but get up and actually go to the bathroom and finish. I found the easiest thing to do is just have the child change their clothes and cover the wet spot with thick towels. The towels don't soak through. It keeps the child away from the wet towels. Oh, and the other thing is you want to have extra blankets, because then that also helps teach the child independence. Child's not always able to take a sheet off in the middle of the night by themselves. It may sound kind of gross, but it's not like you leave it there. It's just for the rest of the night. And then, the next morning you give a whole fresh new bed. And, but at least they're sleeping on a dry sheet. They're sleeping in fresh pajamas, and they have a fresh blanket. And like I said, you may disagree with that because you think it's gross that your child's sleeping in pee, but they're really not, because there is that barrier of the towels. Sometimes they have to use 2 towels, but if they're really thick towels, it won't soak through the towel. It just doesn't. So they're just sleeping on the towel. Tip number 6, make sure that you have your washer empty and ready for the next load, such as, put in the detergent, the softener, whatever you normally put in your loads. Make sure the washer's all set up, the dials are set. So the night before, make sure your child has a laundry basket in their room, so that if they do wet in the middle of the night, they can put the wet clothes in the basket. So then, the reason you get the washer ready at night is because we're all busy in the morning when we get up, getting ready for school, getting ready for work. What that will do is that will allow either you or your child to be able to just take that laundry basket, dump it in the washer, push start, and off to work you go. And you can dry it when you get home. Number 7. It's okay if your child's bed is not made every day. It's not important. In the grand scheme of things, your life does not depend on whether your child's bed is made. It helps them be more independent. Since we're all busy in the morning, all you or your child has to do in the morning is strip the bed. If the bed is wet in the morning. I did find that if they wet in the middle of the night and they have it usually wet again in the morning. So just strip the bed in the morning, throw it in the laundry basket, and throw it in the washer. If your child's bed sits there all day with nothing but the plastic sheet on it, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not a bad parent if your child's bed is not made. It's not the end of the world. What's important is that those wet clothes don't remain on the bed. If they do, they're going to be dry by the time you get home, but then the room will stink. Tip number 8 is don't use a heavy comforter, since most clothes washers do not accommodate a heavy comforter. You don't want the child to continue to use heavy comforters and continue to pee them. keep the comforter off the bed and save it for company. Making sure you have warm pajamas and a warm blanket. I mean, you heat your house. So all your child needs is a warm pajamas and a warm blanket. You know, they don't need this big heavy comforter. You know, if they do, if the warm pajamas and one warm blanket isn't enough, have a second warm blanket. So that when you wash the clothes the next day, if both blankets don't fit in the washer, you can put one blanket in and put another blanket in. But, you know, having said that, even easier way than making the bed only for when company comes is just close the door. Bedrooms are private rooms. They're private parts of your house. Your company doesn't need to go in there. Now, if your child wants to have a friend over after school, you know, typically they'll want to go play in the child's bedroom. If that's the case, and, you know, the child comes home from school with your child, or the friend comes home from school with your child, put them to, you know, give them a snack to eat at the kitchen at the kitchen table or the dining room table, at the kitchen table, kitchen counter, whatever. And then while they're eating their snack, you quietly go into the bedroom and make the bed. Otherwise, I just close the door. Okay, tip number 9. As your child is appropriately aged, have them help you make the bed. Have them make the bed on their own, or change the sheets. Have the child do their own laundry. I mean, they're going to get old enough, they're eventually going to have to learn how to do it anyway. So, you know, once they're old enough to do it for themselves, teach them how to do it. Have them be more responsible for themselves. Tip number 10 is, on occasion, the bed is going to get wet. It just happens. For some reason, the plastic sheet fails. It gets ripped, it falls off. You know, just note that the next day you have to clean the bed. And so I'll put a link to in the description box below on the best way I have found to clean the bed and get out any and remove any odors. Well, that's the video for today. I hope that you find these tips helpful. I would appreciate your feedback. Leave some comments in the comment section below. If you have any questions, please comment, like, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you know the next time I upload a video, which is pretty sporadic, as you can see, but I hope to get better at it. But in the meantime, you have a great day, and thank you so much for watching.